Today, the world knows it as the United Kingdom, a nation that once built the largest empire in history, ruled territories across nearly every continent, and gave rise to the famous saying, "The British Empire was the empire on which the sun never set." But was this powerful empire always there? Was Britain always a single country? Or does its story begin thousands of years ago, in a time when there were no kings, no London, no parliament, and no nation called the United Kingdom? This is the story of a land that journeyed from scattered tribal communities to becoming the center of the world's most powerful empire. And that journey begins thousands of years ago. Around 12,000 years ago, at the end of the last ice age, the land we now call Britain was connected to mainland Europe by a land bridge. As the climate warmed, the ice melted, sea levels rose, and that land bridge was gradually submerged beneath the water. The region became a large island, now known as Great Britain. This natural transformation changed the course of its history forever. The earliest people survived by hunting wild animals and moving with the changing seasons. Over time, they learned farming, built permanent settlements, and gradually developed organized communities. Reminders of that ancient world still stand in Britain today. The most famous is Stonehenge, one of the oldest and most mysterious monuments on Earth. Although experts still debate its exact purpose, they agree that it was built thousands of years ago and reflects the remarkable abilities of the people who created it. Centuries later, different tribes settled across the land. Today, they are collectively known as the Celts. They lived in separate regions but shared many similarities in language, culture, and traditions. They built hill forts, expanded agriculture, and established their own unique identity. Their religious leaders, known as the Druids, held an important place in society. At that time, there was no single king or central government ruling the British Isles. Instead, many tribes controlled their own territories. Meanwhile, another great power was rising across Europe. That power was the Roman Empire. Known for its disciplined armies, advanced administration, and vast conquests, Rome continued expanding its influence. Before long, its attention turned toward the British Isles. In 55 BC, the Roman general Julius Caesar made the first attempt to reach Britain. Although he did not establish permanent control, his expedition revealed the strategic importance of the island to Rome. Nearly a century later, in AD 43, during the reign of Emperor Claudius, Roman forces returned. This time, they came not just to explore, but to conquer and rule. The Romans gradually gained control over much of southern Britain. They founded new towns, built durable roads, bridges, and forts, and introduced an organized administrative system whose influence can still be seen today. During this period, a settlement called Londinium was established. Over the centuries, it grew into the city we now know as London. Roman rule transformed trade, architecture, and urban life across much of Britain. However, not every part of the British Isles came under Roman control. The tribes living in the north continued to resist. To defend their frontier, the Romans built a massive defensive barrier known today as Hadrian's Wall. It was far more than a wall of stone. It marked the northern frontier of the Roman Empire. For nearly 400 years, the Roman Empire ruled much of Britain. But by the 4th and 5th centuries AD, Rome itself was weakened by internal conflicts and external invasions. Around AD 410, Roman forces began withdrawing from Britain. Centuries of Roman rule came to an end, and the British Isles entered another period of uncertainty. But the departure of Rome left behind a power vacuum. And from across the sea, new peoples were already making their way toward these shores. People who would reshape the language, identity, culture, and future of Britain forever. After the Roman Empire withdrew from Britain, a power vacuum was left behind. The Roman legions had returned home, their administrative system began to collapse, and the cities that once symbolized Roman rule gradually lost their former glory. But history rarely leaves a vacuum for long. From across the North Sea, new peoples were making their way to Britain. Their arrival would reshape the identity of the island forever. During the 5th century AD, several Germanic tribes, including the Angles, Saxons, and Jutes, began arriving in Britain. At first, some were invited by local rulers to help defend the land. But over time, they settled permanently. They established their own communities, introduced their languages, laws, and traditions, and gradually expanded their influence across much of Britain. It was from the Angles that the name England eventually emerged, meaning land of the Angles. As time passed, these settlements developed into several small kingdoms. History remembers these 7 major kingdoms as the Heptarchy. They included Northumbria, Mercia, East Anglia, Essex, Kent, Sussex, and Wessex. Sometimes they formed alliances, sometimes they traded, and often they fought one another for power. At this stage, England was not yet a single nation, but a collection of competing kingdoms. At the same time, another major transformation was taking place. In AD 597, the missionary Saint Augustine, sent by the Pope, arrived in southeastern Britain. His mission led many local rulers to embrace Christianity, and over the following centuries, the new faith became a central part of Anglo-Saxon society. Monasteries were established, education expanded, and religious centers became important places for learning and writing. Just as these kingdoms seemed to be moving toward greater stability, a new force emerged from across the sea. They were the Vikings. In the late 8th century, Viking warriors from Scandinavia began reaching the shores of Britain aboard their fast longships. The attack on Lindisfarne Monastery in AD 793 is widely regarded as the beginning of the Viking Age in Britain. At first, their raids focused mainly on plunder, but before long, they began establishing permanent settlements across different parts of the island. Within a few decades, many Anglo-Saxon kingdoms struggled to withstand the Viking invasions. Only one major kingdom continued to resist. That kingdom was Wessex. Its ruler, Alfred the Great, organized the kingdom's defense against the Vikings. He strengthened the army, built fortified towns, improved local defenses, and promoted education and law. After the Battle of Edington in AD 878, Alfred reached an agreement with the Viking leader Guthrum. As a result, one part of England remained under Viking control, while the other stayed under Anglo-Saxon rule. This Viking-controlled region later became known as the Danelaw. After Alfred the Great, his successors gradually united the Anglo-Saxon kingdoms. By the beginning of the 10th century, a more unified English kingdom was taking shape. For the first time, England was beginning to emerge as a single political identity. But that unity was still far from secure. Across the sea, another powerful ruler had set his sights on England. He was not coming simply to invade. He was coming to claim the English crown itself. And the year 1066 was about to become one of the most decisive turning points in British history. By the early 10th century, the Anglo-Saxon rulers had gradually begun uniting the different kingdoms into a single realm. After years of warfare and Viking invasions, it seemed that England was finally entering a period of stability. But history was about to take another dramatic turn, one that would forever change not only England's ruler, but also its language, laws, culture, and system of government. And that turning point came in 1066. The year 1066 is considered one of the most significant in English history. That year, King Edward the Confessor died without leaving an heir, triggering a major succession crisis. Several men claimed the English throne. The leading contenders were Harold Godwin's son, who was chosen as King of England, and William, Duke of Normandy, who claimed that Edward had promised him the crown. At the same time, King Harald Hardrada of Norway also asserted his claim to the English throne. Within just a few months, England became the battleground for 3 rival claimants. The first invasion came from the north. King Harold Godwin's son quickly marched his army north and defeated the Norwegian forces at the Battle of Stamford Bridge. It was a remarkable victory, but almost immediately after, another threat was approaching from the south. William, Duke of Normandy, had crossed the English Channel with his army. On October 14, 1066, the two armies met at the Battle of Hastings in southern England. This was far more than just another battle. It was a fight that would determine the future of England. After a fierce struggle, King Harold Godwin's son was killed, and William's forces secured a decisive victory. From that moment on, William became known as William the Conqueror. His triumph marked the beginning of the Norman era in England. The Norman conquest of 1066 transformed far more than just the monarchy. William strengthened his rule by building powerful castles across the country. One of the most famous was the Tower of London, whose origins date back to this period. He redistributed land, replaced many Anglo-Saxon nobles with Norman lords, and established a strong feudal system. In 1086, William ordered an extraordinary nationwide survey known as the Domesday Book. It recorded detailed information about land ownership, population, livestock, property, and taxes throughout the kingdom. Historians consider it one of the most important government records of the Middle Ages. It gave the crown a far better understanding of its lands and resources. With the Norman rulers came the Norman French language, which became the language of the royal court and the nobility, while ordinary people continued speaking Old English. Over the centuries, these languages gradually blended together, laying the foundation for the English language we know today. The legal system, the courts, the military, and the royal administration also underwent major reforms. The Norman conquest did not simply replace one king with another. It permanently reshaped England's identity. Over the next few centuries, England's kings continued expanding their authority, but their power was never beyond challenge. The nobility demanded greater rights, the church remained highly influential, and growing taxes placed increasing pressure on the population. Eventually, a moment arrived when even the King of England was forced to accept limits on his own authority. In 1215, a historic document was signed that would leave a lasting mark not only on England, but on constitutional history around the world. That document was called the Magna Carta, and it marked the beginning of a new balance between the power of the monarchy and the rule of law. After the Norman conquest of 1066, England's system of government had completely transformed. A new king, new laws, powerful castles, and a new governing structure had been established. But over time, one important question began to emerge again. Should a king have complete and unlimited power? Or should even the king be bound by the law? This question led to an event in English history that would have a lasting impact on political systems around the world. At the beginning of the 13th century, England's King John faced several major challenges. He suffered defeats in wars against France. The royal treasury came under pressure, and he increased taxes on nobles to fund his military campaigns. England's powerful nobles began challenging the authority of the king. Eventually, in 1215, King John was forced to sign a historic document known as the Magna Carta. The Magna Carta was not created to immediately establish democracy, but it strengthened one important principle. The ruler is also subject to the law. The document placed certain limits on the king's powers and promoted the idea that government should operate according to established laws. Over time, this principle became an important foundation for constitutional government and the protection of individual rights. In the centuries that followed, England's system of representation slowly began to develop. By the late 13th century, the idea of parliament became stronger, bringing together nobles, representatives of the church, and later representatives of ordinary citizens. This system was not a modern democracy like we know today, but it was an important step that helped shape the future British political system. During the 14th and 15th centuries, England faced several major challenges. These included long wars with France, internal political conflicts, and struggles for power within the royal family. One of the most famous conflicts of this period was the Wars of the Roses. This civil war was fought between two royal families, the House of Lancaster and the House of York, over control of the English throne. After years of conflict, Henry Tudor came to power in 1485, beginning the rule of the Tudor dynasty. The Tudor era became one of the most important periods in English history. During this time, England experienced major changes in religion, politics, and its position as a global power. One of the most famous Tudor monarchs was Henry VIII. During his reign, England's relationship with the church completely changed. When the Pope refused to allow Henry VIII to end his marriage, he broke away from Rome and established a separate church in England known as the Church of England. This was not only a religious change, but it also transformed England's politics and the power of the state. After Henry VIII, his daughter Elizabeth I became queen. Her reign became a major turning point in English history. During this period, England made significant progress in naval power, trade, and culture. English ships began reaching different parts of the world, expanding England's influence across the oceans. In 1588, England faced one of its greatest threats when Spain sent a massive fleet known as the Spanish Armada. Spain was one of the world's most powerful nations at the time, but the English Navy successfully defended against the attack, causing the Spanish campaign to fail. This victory increased England's confidence at sea and helped it become one of Europe's leading naval powers. During the same era, English literature and culture also flourished. This was the period when writers like William Shakespeare emerged, and his works continue to be studied and admired around the world today. But after the Tudor era, England was heading toward a new political crisis. The struggle between the monarchy and parliament over power began to grow. This conflict was not just a political disagreement. It eventually led to a civil war in which the king himself would face defeat. This event would prove that the balance of power in England was about to change forever. During the Tudor era, England had become an important European power. Its naval strength, trade, and military influence were growing, but inside the country, a new conflict was emerging. This conflict was about the power of the king and the authority of parliament. In the years that followed, this disagreement would lead England into a civil war that would not only cost the king his life, but would also transform the foundations of the government system. In 1603, after the end of the Tudor dynasty, the Stuart dynasty came to the English throne. The new king, James I, and later his son Charles I, strongly supported royal authority. They believed that a king's right to rule came from God and that his decisions should not be limited. But Parliament had a different view. It wanted the king to seek Parliament's approval for taxes, laws, and major government decisions. Over time, this disagreement continued to grow. In 1642, the conflict between King Charles I and Parliament turned into an armed struggle. This war became known as the English Civil War. On one side were the supporters of the king, known as the Royalists, while on the other side were the supporters of Parliament. The parliamentary forces were led by Oliver Cromwell. After years of fighting, Parliament's army achieved victory. In 1649, King Charles I was executed. This was an extraordinary event in European history because, for the first time, a reigning monarch was removed from power and punished by his own people's representatives. After the fall of the monarchy, England attempted to establish a republican-style government known as the Commonwealth. However, this system did not last for long. In 1660, the monarchy was restored and the Stuart dynasty returned to power. But the king's authority was no longer as powerful as it had been before. In 1688, another major political transformation took place, known as the Glorious Revolution. As a result, Parliament's power became stronger, and in 1689, the Bill of Rights was passed. This law established that the monarch must respect the laws created by Parliament. This event became a major step in the development of Britain's constitutional system. During the 18th century, another major transformation began. This change was called the Industrial Revolution. Britain became the first country where industrial production grew at an extraordinary speed. New machines were invented, factories were built, and steam power transformed industry and transportation. Industries such as textiles, iron production, and coal mining played a major role in strengthening Britain's economy. The Industrial Revolution caused cities to grow rapidly. People from rural areas moved to cities in search of work. Railways reduced travel times, trade expanded, and Britain became one of the world's leading industrial powers. However, this progress also brought new problems. Workers in factories often faced difficult conditions, long working hours, and even child labor. Over time, reforms improved workers' rights and workplace conditions. At the same time, Britain's naval power continued to expand. British trade and colonial influence spread across different parts of the world. During the 18th and 19th centuries, Britain built one of the largest empires in history. This empire stretched across parts of Asia, Africa, America, and Oceania. Because of its vast global reach, a famous phrase became associated with it. The sun never sets on the British Empire. Britain's power was not built only on military strength. It was also based on trade, naval dominance, industrial production, and global finance. London became one of the world's most important commercial centers. But building such a vast empire also brought political, economic, and social challenges across many regions. By the end of the 19th century, Britain was one of the world's leading global powers. But the world was changing rapidly. New powers were rising, industrial competition was increasing, and tensions between European nations were growing. These conditions would eventually push the world toward a major conflict that would change the future of Britain and the entire world. By the end of the 19th century, Britain had become one of the most powerful nations in the world. Its navy dominated the oceans, its industries were famous across the globe, and its empire stretched across multiple continents. But the 20th century was about to begin a new era, one that would transform not only Britain but the entire world. This was the century in which Britain experienced 2 world wars, witnessed the decline of its empire, and rebuilt itself as a modern nation. At the beginning of the 20th century, competition for power between European nations was increasing. New alliances were forming, and political tensions were rising. In 1914, after a major event triggered conflict, the First World War began, and Britain joined the war alongside its allies. The war became one of the deadliest conflicts in human history. Millions of soldiers lost their lives, economies were damaged, and the political map of Europe was transformed. After the First World War, Britain was among the victorious nations, but the war had deeply affected its economy and global influence. At the same time, new world powers were emerging, and maintaining control over the vast British Empire was becoming increasingly difficult. In 1939, the Second World War began. When Germany expanded its power across Europe, Britain declared war against it. This became one of the most challenging periods in British history. By 1940, German forces had occupied several European countries, leaving Britain facing a major threat almost alone. During this difficult time, the British people endured severe hardships. Under the leadership of Winston Churchill, Britain continued the fight. The Battle of Britain in 1940 became one of the most important moments of the war. The German Air Force launched attacks against Britain, but the Royal Air Force defended the country, and Germany failed to invade Britain. Later, other Allied powers, including the United States and the Soviet Union, joined the war. In 1945, the Second World War ended, but the world had changed forever. Although Britain was among the victorious nations, its economy was under severe pressure after the war. The cost of the conflict and changing global conditions weakened the British Empire. In the following decades, independence movements grew stronger across Asia, Africa, and other regions. Gradually, many British colonies became independent nations. The empire that had once stretched across much of the world entered a completely new era. By the middle of the 20th century, Britain began changing its role on the world stage. Instead of being a vast empire, it started developing as a modern nation-state. In 1948, the National Health Service, NHS, was established, creating a major transformation in public health care. Reforms were also introduced in education, social welfare, and modern industries. During this period, political changes continued within Britain itself. In 1922, most of Ireland separated from the United Kingdom, while Northern Ireland remained part of the UK. Later, discussions about the relationship and distribution of powers between Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland became important parts of British politics. In the 21st century, the United Kingdom exists as a modern democratic nation. It remains one of the world's major economies, a permanent member of the United Nations Security Council, and continues to play an important role in global politics, education, science, and culture. In 2016, the United Kingdom voted to leave the European Union, a decision known as Brexit, and the process was completed in 2020. This became one of the most significant political events in modern British history. Today, the United Kingdom is a nation with a history stretching back thousands of years. Ancient tribes lived on this land, followed by the Romans, Anglo-Saxons, Vikings, and Normans, eventually leading to the creation of an empire that left a deep mark on world history. But its story is not only about conquest and power. It is also a story of change, struggle, political development, scientific progress, and a constantly evolving identity. A journey that began on a small island grew into one of the largest empires the world had ever seen, and later transformed into a modern democratic state. This was History of the United Kingdom, the story of a nation whose history left a lasting impact on the entire world.